I'm your host Faisal Raza and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, United Nations headquarters in New York, United States is hosting more than 150 presidents and prime ministers from September 22nd to 27th, 2024 at the annual high-level week during the opening of the United Nations General Assembly's 79th session. And the prelude of this year is the Summit of the Future, which aims to generate a new consensus on global cooperation. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, along with his delegation representing Pakistan at the United Nations General Assembly 79th session, his visit scheduled from 23rd to 27th of September 2024. Beside addressing the UNGA gathering, he is also meeting with the heads of states and heads of governments and also addressing the different sideline events at the UNGA. Pakistan's prime focus at the United Nations General Assembly this year's session is peace, security and prosperity. Peace by stressing upon the resolution of all outstanding issues, including the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir issue and also the Palestinian issue. Along with that, the security issues includes the stability in the region, terrorism, particularly the state-sponsored Indian terrorism, along with the effects of climate change. When we are talking about the prosperity, Pakistan's prime focus is economics, trade and commerce, including the investments, and also to have the rational debt, particularly the debt traps. And Pakistan is focusing in all meetings that world must have to pay focus on it, as the developing world is suffering hard because of the debt traps. To discuss all these important issues, we have in our studios Dr. Rizwan Naseer. He is the Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad. Most welcome to you, Dr. Sahab. Thank you very much for your presence. We have Saira Ijaz. She is the Senior Analyst. Most welcome to you, Saira. Thank you very much for your presence. And online joining us, Mr. Hamza Amir Khalil. He is the International Relations Expert from the National University of Modern Languages. Most welcome to you, Hamza. Thank you very much for your presence online. So, my first question to Dr. Rizwan, to you. United Nations Secretary General, right at the onset in his presser on September 18th, 2024 at the UNGA79 session, cautioned of a World War III and stressed to avoid it. He elaborated by saying that we are witnessing multiplication of the conflicts and the sense of impunity, and that sense of impunity is not limited to the big powers. And Antonio still believe we have all the conditions available to avoid World War III. What he meant by?
Faisal, thank you so much. He has not referred to any conflict, ongoing conflict. There are many conflicts starting from Ukraine, Russia, even in Gaza, where you see now it has expanded to Lebanon as well. And of course, India is becoming more assertive. What is India is doing? Indo-Pacific strategy, they are trying to engage China as well. So there are many ongoing conflicts in the world at the moment. He did not refer particularly to anyone.
Obviously.
But what is more alarming and dangerous is that these countries are at cross purposes. Cross purposes, you see, one is acting, other is reacting. That is what he's referring to. The world, what we are seeing, if I take back you that time when the World War happened, there were secret agreements going on between different countries, great powers. One went to war, the other joined him.
Definitely.
Later on in World War II, what happened? Again, the kind of similar thing when there were poles, two poles. One is one pole, A, B pole, they were incompatible. Now what is happening again? The world is moving towards polarization again because of the rise of China. Everyone knows about it. Now, what is happening at the moment, we see a greater divide at the larger scale. Internationally, we see America is very openly, very vocally holding China responsible, starting from COVID and etc. etc. So this is actually what I want personally to say in your program. The World War III can happen because we do not hold any crystal ball.
Obviously.
Because if the great powers are not cooperating on global issues, they are actually having a conflict at the greater level. Their allies, American allies, and of course China after BRI has a lot of allies who are supporting China, China's region as well. This may lead to a place where both the countries are openly engaged. They are not openly engaged yet, but this is still vocally holding each other responsible. It's we call war of words with each other. So Antonio Guterres meant by if this kind of situation arises, because this is the time we have a technology, we have very sophisticated weaponry, we have a social media thing when the misinformation or disinformation can spread anywhere, because people remain in complete confusion because they do not find what is a fact in this time. So given this situation, I think so it is a message for the great powers that they should coordinate, cooperate, and the leaders should participate for the peace. This is the greatest form. This is the greatest forum, United Nations. And I think so this provides all the international leaders to sit together, to join their heads together to the global challenges, regional challenges. They sit together and then decide what is good for their region and how they can contribute globally as well.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Saira, United Nations Secretary General acknowledged and expressed worries about the penetration of the terrorists from Afghanistan into Pakistan on innocent victims of terrorism and the threats to Pakistan's national security, and stressed upon Afghanistan to control its territory and do not allow terrorist groups to operate from its soil. So how do you see Secretary General's remarks during the press conference?
It is a very, positive development, and I think it goes into the Pakistan's favor that the international organizations and the so-called one of the most powerful organization in this world system recognizes the challenges Pakistan is currently facing in the name of or in the form of extremism and terrorism, and right from its neighbors. And there is no doubt that Pakistan again and again tries to, engage Afghanistan for bilateral talks, for economic cooperation, for bilateral trade. But unfortunately, since the fall of Kabul, scenario is not getting, favorable for both the countries, and the price is paying only Pakistan, which is very worrisome. And it is bring instability not only at regional level, but we are suffering at national level, because now this wave of terrorism is spreading and is not only restricted to KPK or one area or one province of Pakistan, it is now spreading to all the parts or all the provinces of Pakistan. You can see what's happening in Balochistan, in the southwestern part of Balochistan. Then Punjab is also in the being burnt of these terrorist activities. Like no area, no region or no part of Pakistan is safe from the terrorist activities of TTP. And now recently by UN also published a report by itself.
Two reports, in fact.
Two reports
submitted in the United Nations Security
that there is an
Council.
active part of TTP, and they are being fully supported by the Afghan Talibans and also the Al-Qaeda group of responsible for the Asian activities and all that.
But
So
that again raises the question that whether what the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, whether the world community and the international leadership is endorsing that and taking some stern actions or meaningful actions, what actually is happening in Afghanistan, because that is not the threat only to Pakistan, to the region and to the
world at large,
international community as well. So rightly said. Hamza, what's your thought on when United Nations Secretary General during the Summit of the Future stressed upon multilateralism, UN reforms, fair and effective implementation of the UN Charter as conflicts are raging, multiplying without end. There are geopolitical divides, nuclear posturing, development of the new weapons and rising threats of war. There is death, destruction, debt and climate crisis. So how you basically see this whole statement of the United Nations Secretary General?
Yes, absolutely. There is no doubt that we are lacking multilateralism at the global level. The world basically is divided into multiple poles. Even if you see from the perspective of Palestine or even Kashmir or the civil war in Sudan, you can clearly see through the United Nations that the world has failed to resolve both issues. If you see the current ongoing genocide in Palestine, United Nations has totally failed, and it has failed due to lack of support from the West and due to lack of united multilateralism. Moreover, I agree the United Nations reforms are needed because the UN Charter, most of it is becoming outdated. And it really needs an overhauling to cope with the complexities of 21st century and specifically with the way now wars are fought, which is that despite officially not declaring the wars are being fought while having a cover of maintaining peace. We can see Israel, they are bombing Lebanon while saying that we want to maintain peace. We can see from the past 2 decades, India have been launching hybrid warfare against Pakistan while saying that we want peace. And I personally believe that the biggest injustice within the United Nations is being faced by the underdeveloped countries, and it is the power of veto and unilateral decision making, which is going against the decisions of the UN and not facing any consequences. To give you an example, despite that the majority of countries opposed the decision of making Jerusalem the capital of Israel, it was still made the capital of Israel, which was against the multilateral decision making and ruling of United Nations. Finally, you see we have the north-south divide, we have the west and east divide, and then we have a three-level divide in the globe: the first world, the second world, the third world. Now the first world are basically the developed countries, and they are extracting resources from the third world, and they are trying to develop even more, and ultimately they are depleting what remains of the underdeveloped world. And if they do not listen, you just hear a civil war erupting all of a sudden, just like as it happened in Libya or in Sudan. It is happening right now. So United Nations Secretary General is absolutely right that geopolitical divides exist, and their implications for global security tells us that an urgent need for renewed commitment to cooperative governance is required.
You are absolutely right. That's why the Summit of Future was the pinpointed, focused on. Saira, how do you see the adoption of the Pact of the Future with consensus, in which Pakistan obviously played a pivotal role? How much it's vital to secure humanity's future with multilateralism, peace, equality, equity, development and prosperity? What is the significance of it? Whether it's going to be implemented forcefully, because promises are very lucrative and not new even, without concrete action plan, and when it's non-binding upon its members.
I think that's where the lacuna is, and that's what the dilemma is, because it's a very, very nicely written document, and it's a much needed also. And the main baseline of this argument is about multilateralism, promoting multilateralism and promoting peace and prosperity for the entire humanity. And it is the main focus of this pact is on the global digital, science and technology. There are basically 5 broader areas which it's covering: sustainable development, international peace and security, science and technology, youth and future generation, and the transforming global governance. I would again emphasize on the last point, that is global governance. Now, I'm just taking this thing to the point which the President Erdogan, Turkish President, is very ably and in his very passionate speech mentioned that in Gaza we are not only seeing dying children and the women and the humanity, but also dying the UN. So it's the right time to take actions about it. It's a very nice fact, it is a much needed thing, but the vagueness in which the Russian Federation also highlighted it very in strong words, that it's a vague document. There is no need how the UN or going to implement all this system in the current ongoing world system.
But
how they will implement it.
No doubt,
but again,
Russia,
I would say here that
Russia has raised some of the objections, want to assert some of its point into the Pact of the Future, but unfortunately that was not discussed, and obviously
and
that was
one thing I would like
approved
to add,
with consensus.
Now again the role of the states comes in here, because the UN has done its part. He has given its the pact and the document for the entire world system and to improve the global governance system. But again, that biasedness which lies with the West, towards the South global parts, that needs to be addressed, and
Obviously.
that needs to be highlighted.
Obviously, you are right, absolutely right. Dr. Rizwan, at the UNGA 79th session high-level week, global leaders will obviously outline their priorities, propose new initiatives and call for global action on pressing challenges. What would be the priorities of Pakistan's delegation led by the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif over there?
First of all, I break into two parts. One is the global leaders. The global leaders are going to talk about climate change, which is a global challenge at the moment, and they are discussing how to avoid, because our own country back in 2018, 2022 was badly hit by the devastating floods. And we had economic loss, we had the loss of life, agriculture loss, and it cumulatively built around $40 billion to Pakistan's economy. So I think that is a shared concern for all of them. And now coming back to the second part of the question, which is Pakistan's delegation there. Pakistan's delegation is going to talk about 3-4 things. Number one, of course, the shared concern, global food security. Then comes hunger, reducing SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, gender include as well. Now, the most important thing is at the moment what Pakistan is facing is the threat of terrorism. It's the biggest challenge. If you want to revive your economy, what you are facing challenge from is terrorism. And Pakistan's delegation, Prime Minister and his delegation will be talking or highlighting how the India is sponsoring it, because Indians are actively involved. I want to draw attention of the audience towards when in Canada, the killing of the Sikh leader was done, and Canadian directly said it's because of that, because they had very credible intelligence reports.
Obviously.
And same Pakistan is highlighting, but no one was hearing. Secondly, when it comes to the Balochistan, the issue, India is infiltrating and sponsoring terrorism, Pakistan will be high. Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, why India is after 370-35A very sophisticatedly is changing the demography of that. That's a big challenge. I think the world leaders should know what is the modus operandi of Indians, what they are doing. Even at a later stage, India says, yes, they are willing for the plebiscite. And I think so that won't work, because they will be able to manipulate the demography.
Obviously.
So another thing Pakistani delegation is going to talk about is debt. In your intro, you said death, devastation, destruction.
Obviously.
I already mentioned debt is a greater concern.
Obviously.
Pakistan is already in shackles of this external debt. And I personally think so the international lenders, Prime Minister of Pakistan has a meeting with the chief of the IMF.
Obviously.
And they had some demands. Pakistan has to comply with them.
Definitely. We will talk on that as well. Saira, what do you expect from the Prime Minister's speech at the UNGA? As the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says, the PM will stress on resolving the long-standing disputes of Palestine and Jammu and Kashmir, immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the two-state solution, addressing terrorism, what you were referring to, and the terrorist sanctuaries in Afghanistan. How do you see?
I think we have a very, very able team at UNGA led by Ambassador Amir Akram. And
Munir Akram.
Ji?
Ambassador Munir Akram.
Munir Akram. I'm so sorry. I mistakenly taken the other name. Munir Akram, and they must have briefed, and our Prime Minister, and our Prime Minister by himself knows about the basic problems right now going on in the world, and particularly facing by Pakistan. And I am quite hopeful that PM would highlight our main issues which are directly hitting our population in a very bad way, and which is all these things mentioned by you are the reasons or the main causes of instability within Pakistan. And if one country is unstable in the region, the entire region is unstable.
Obviously. You're absolutely
so I'm
right.
quite hopeful things will move in the right direction. And as Dr. Rizwan very rightly mentioned, that right now our biggest problem is the external debt. And I think Prime Minister will have have a meeting with the, today I think as per the schedule, we'll have the meeting with the president of IMF as well, and I hope things will move in the right direction.
Definitely,
we should be hopeful about it.
Definitely. Managing Director of the IMF and Kristalina Georgieva and the President of World Bank.
Sorry.
Do you not think that now Pakistan has to take aggressive diplomatic position or posture related to the Kashmir dispute at the UN particularly, so the world including United Nations must pay attention to this grave human rights issue. United Nations Security Council to implement its resolutions, have plebiscite and give right of self-determination to the Kashmiris, take action against the Indian brutalities and the genocide, Indian state-sponsored terrorism in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and along with Pakistan by using the third country soil. So, do you think that we have to take a very aggressive diplomatic position on that?
First of all, I personally believe there should be assertive position, but coupled with some smart strategy, because this is an age we need to do a quick lobbying on that. The lobbying I'm taking in a positive way. Lobbying, we have to gather all of the international people who are actually advocates of bringing peace and stability, because two nuclear states cannot stay like this.
Obviously.
This is a global issue, it's not a regional issue.
Well,
now,
definitely.
coming back to this point, on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, there are resolutions done already. Pakistan has to spread out all of the world leaders that Pakistan always has adopted a pacifist approach, has never been picking up weapons to resolve this issue, whereas India has done so many times. The history revealed on us. Now, Pakistan, if it's doing that, you know, in contemporary times, we have to work on the media thing. I would like to draw the attention of the audience towards the Indian Chronicles. Like they had 700 plus channels which were telling lies to the world about Kashmir, about Pakistan's projects. They were telling to the world what according to their agenda. And this kind of lies, actually, they are damaging our reputation internationally, and investors and on so many fronts like economy, security, and etc. I would like to add, there is a psychological glitch with humans. One human listen to the same lies 11 times, they start believing this is true.
Definitely.
Yeah. Indians are doing this
right now in the world right now.
Absolutely.
No doubt
And
about
they
that.
are playing on the same trick, and they are telling to the world on Kashmir, very simply, all the human rights organizations, their chiefs should be called, taken to that. India has manipulated
But
that
India is
before.
actually doing it as a policy. Whatever the false narratives they are building.
On the selected areas
Definitely.
where they have so-called control. And I think the Kashmiris, they should have a proper voice globally that what Kashmiris are feeling. One more point I would like to add, the Pakistan and the Pakistan's friends. Pakistan should take a stance on it. Those countries who are India's friend as well, common friends, Pakistan's friends, there are some Islamic countries as well, they are planning of investing in Jammu and Kashmir. I think we should be taking a stance on that they should not invest until or unless it is resolved peacefully.
Definitely, you are absolutely right. Hamza, what do you expect from the Prime Minister's high-level participation in the United Nations General Assembly session, which includes the high-level meeting on existential threat posed by the sea level rise, which demands ultimate climate action? Then the SDG movement 2024, which the Prime Minister attended just yesterday night. It was a huge event in which Prime Minister has actually placed Pakistan's case, what happened in 2022 after the devastating floods, and then the UN Security Council's open debate. That is again a very important event, leadership of peace. So Pakistan will highlight what Pakistan is facing in the region in the form of terrorism, what Pakistan is facing in the form of economic debt, which is actually Pakistan's economy is suffering from, and lots of other challenges like climate change, like the security challenges and all others. So how do you see overall perspective on the sideline events which Prime Minister is attending?
So basically, the sea level rise is not the only threat that we are actually facing from global warming. There are multiple perspectives. One of the perspectives is that there are
rise is actually the event which is there. So that's why I'm asking for that.
Yeah, it is there. Yes. Yeah, it is there, but with the sea level rise, there are thousands and thousands of ancient viruses that are trapped in those glaciers. And with the sea level rise, they can also get released and infiltrate the humankind that can actually cause a pandemic like COVID-19. So the Prime Minister basically likely advocated for the immediate and robust, climate action, emphasizing the need for countries to commit to reducing, greenhouse gas emission and enhancing resilience against climate impacts. And moreover, there should be an international collaboration to share technology and resources, particularly for vulnerable nations facing severe impacts of climate change. As far as the leadership for peace session is concerned, the discussion will likely be focused on promoting dialogue and compromise, because many countries and regions have suffered due to lack of compromise and inability to find a common ground by not understanding each other's narrative. Palestine is suffering, Russia felt threatened and they launched a war, and it led to both sides, both Russia and Ukraine,
But
suffering.
the,
Kashmiris
but
are
Hamza,
suffering.
Hamza,
And
Hamza,
there is a
problem is this. It is not only the compromise, but also the problem is that big powers are backing to their favored nations, and those nations are actually not asserting or adhering the overall global mechanism of promoting peace, stability, and prosperity. But unfortunately, there was the International Court of Justice. They have the 2 or 3 orders there to halt and have ceasefire in Gaza. Along with that, there were 2 resolutions which were passed unanimously by the Security Council as well. So those resolutions are assertive, those resolutions are binding upon Israel. This is not the United Nations General Assembly only where the non-binding resolutions are non-binding. So unfortunately, that not happened because of the big power support to Israel.
Yes, exactly. That is happening. In the previous the question which you previously asked, I talked about multilateralism and the East-West divide and North-South divide. The most of the European countries and especially the major powers, they are actually supporting Israel in their genocide against Gaza. They are openly providing them with weapons. So it is absolutely true that the powerful states, if I talk about the 5 big powerful states, especially the United States of America, whenever a resolution comes in favor of in favor of Gaza, or in favor of Kashmir, they are just going to veto it. So that is a big problem, that a challenge that United Nations is facing, and that is one of the reasons that UN Secretary General talked about bringing reforms into United Nations, and that is exactly what I pointed out towards, that previously, that the UN Charter is becoming outdated because it needs to cope up with the increasing complexities which are emerging with the passage of time. And the new challenge which we are going to face will be in form of artificial intelligence being weaponized and being used as a terminator 50 years from now against the underdeveloped countries.
Definitely, you are absolutely right, because Pakistan is stressing upon UN reforms which must have to be equitable, must be representative, non-discriminatory, and those reforms must be that the different regions must have to be represented in an equal term and based on principles. So, do you not think that Prime Minister, during his address to the UN Security Council, Pakistan priorities her work with the UN member states to uphold the UN Charter? That is important, because you are rightly mentioning that unfortunately that is seems to be that UN Charter is going outdated. So preventing that whole scenario and resolving the conflicts, especially the Palestine and Kashmir, fostering peace, promoting global prosperity, as Pakistan is going to become a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for the year 2025-26. So that is again going to be a prime focus of the Prime Minister, because Pakistan has lots of priorities being in the United Nations Security Council from the beginning of the next year.
Yeah. In the upcoming address, the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is expected to prioritize several key areas. Let me point it out. Number one is commitment to principle. The Prime Minister will obviously emphasize Pakistan's dedication to upholding the UN Charter, which includes promoting peace, security, and cooperation among the nations. Number two, one would be the focus on Palestine and Kashmir. he will certainly raise voice for the rights of the Palestinian people and the self-determination of Kashmiris, as Pakistan has always done. However, if you thirdly see that however, if you see, because the conflicts in these areas, they have an impact on regional and global stability. So finding a peaceful solution is really important. Thirdly, the Prime Minister will likely discuss the strategies for fostering peace in South Asia, particularly emphasizing the dialogue and diplomatic efforts to resolve the ongoing tensions with India over Kashmir. And obviously, it is only possible if India stops its unilateral decision which it is making over Kashmir. As previously mentioned by Dr. Saab, that Article 35A and 370 was abrogated. It was a unilateral decision. How can United Nations work if the countries start taking unilateral decision? We have to promote multilateralism. Fourthly, the Prime Minister may also, propose initiatives aimed at economic cooperation and development.
It's again unfortunate that when it was all happened on 5th of August 2019, it was not in isolation. It was not in isolation. United Nations has to assert itself that there are lots of more than 18 resolutions existing from the UN Security Council, and they have to assert themselves as an international organization. But unfortunately, they haven't. There were only the statements available by the UN Secretary General, but practically UN has done very meagerly when it comes to India.
The fact is that the United Nations itself does not have the power to do anything, because the highest funding it is getting from United States of America. Then I have again and again talked about that after World War II, there were 5 countries which were provided veto power. Why only 5? Why not other countries? Firstly, the first reform which will be required by the United Nations is to remove the veto power. First, if the veto power is removed, only then we can talk about moving towards emphasizing.
When it comes to East Timor, when it comes to Sudan, UN has all the powers to assert itself. But unfortunately, when it comes to Gaza or the Palestinian issue, when it comes to Kashmir, when it comes to civil war in Sudan or all others, they are unfortunately not in power. So, Dr. Rizwan, how Pakistan takes the sustainable development goals, as the United Nations 2023 SDG report highlighted that progress on over 50% of the targets is weak and insufficient, and in some cases targets have even regressed due to the multiple global crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the climate change, rising geopolitical tensions, and obviously the economic instabilities. So how do you see that, how we are going to achieve, particularly in case of Pakistan, that Pakistan is suffering with all these, and when it comes to SDGs, whether we are going to attain the objective?
Well, it's a constant struggle, not only for Pakistan, for other partners as well, who are the global members of the state. Regarding SDGs, yes, this is a concern, but it is not happening in isolation. We are living in a world which is exploitative in its nature. Global international institutions, I just mentioned before, the debt burden on Pakistan. The Prime Minister is going to talk about that. I expect is likely to discuss about the IMF, how we need IMF once again, but this time we need IMF, that we need to bring sustainability. We need to come out of this debt, vicious circle of the debt once and for all. Secondly, you are saying there are other areas, there are always areas to improve. Nothing is, but I still say regarding SDG, gender, regarding equality, we are far better than some of the European countries.
And the problem is that unfortunately Global South, including Pakistan, is not getting much of the funding, how to attain sustainable development goals, because these needs the proper funding from the developed world, and they are responsible for the climate crisis as well. So what the UN Secretary General said, the climate justice, where is that justice?
Climate justice, of course, when he mentioned the climate justice, it was actually a wake-up call for those countries who are putting a lot of carbon into the air, polluting air, who are making this earth, there is no planet B, they are making it so polluted. Now it comes the other countries like Pakistan, which are developing countries, they are trying their best, but they still need support from the developed countries. Regarding Pakistan, Pakistan already has taken a lot of good initiatives regarding climate change, regarding gender balanced. There are some policies already in place, but I would like to highlight there are some SDGs which are not quite applicable in a way, like they are applicable to the developed countries, not to the developing countries, and least developing countries, they are struggling with their economy and sustainability. I would like to say life under sea, of course, shared responsibility for all of them, SDG. The life on earth is shared responsibility. We need to go protect the should avoid the deforestation, etc. There are so many other SDGs, but quality education that Pakistan Prime Minister is going to highlight, but I expect. Then sustainable development goals, one is hunger and poverty, they are priority. Then comes actually is how sustainable planet we can achieve.
Obviously.
These are those which are we are already making a lot of progress. Our ministries are doing a great job. Yes, we have not done some very revolutionary thing, but indicators are showing we are making a good progress, which I think is a long-term strategy.
Definitely, what the Defence Minister Khwaja Asif also depicted in his statement during the one of the statement he there at the UNGA, that was very compact statement in which he was time and again stressing upon that world must have to assert itself when it comes to the climate change, when it comes to the pandemic like COVID-19 and now the Mpox. Along with that, there are lots of other issues which are pertaining to. So you are absolutely right on that particular front. So what about addressing the inequities in the international economic system? Reforming the international financial architecture, because that was again stressed by the Defence Minister, and also the Prime Minister is going to address those, and he has addressed in last SDG movement 2024 as well. Beside urging the international community to take decisive measures in addressing the climate change and countering the rising tide of Islamophobia as well, as it's also the core agenda of Pakistan at the UNGA79.
First, answering this question, inequities, this is going to be in our regional areas.
Yes.
Pakistan is a member of SARC. SARC has been dormant for a long time.
Definitely,
Pakistan and India became the member of SCO. Yes, we pin high hopes on that. The SCO, on that platform, we may have some coordination because Russia, China and other regional powers, they are very serious and making it move forward. Those inequities at the global level, there is a regional level. They have discussions how to promote prosperity, how to bring peace and stability. There are wider agendas they can discuss. I personally believe on the regional level there is a lot of potential. They can move forward by collaboration, by cooperation, and they can try to address those international equities. Now coming back to your second part of the question, Islamophobia. Islamophobia is indeed it's a very it's visible to everyone, and Pakistan time and again has been raising this issue in the United Nations. But recently you would see that what is happening on social media, you would see there are anti-Islamic people who are putting a lot of hatred for the Muslims all over the world, and those Muslims who are diaspora living in other in Western countries and developed countries, they are also facing hate crime because of this. I think so this is an agenda which should be joined by the great powers themselves, because it is ruining their reputation as well, because those supremacists who are hitting the Muslims because of this, that they are Muslim just for nothing else, I think this should be addressed. Otherwise, I personally see, going back to the same point, this greater divide. This is going to create a great divide. And going back to the same beginning as you started, the Antonio Guterres highlighted the fear of Third World War. Yes. The United Nations has the mandate of stopping the Third World War. I think United Nations is the best platform.
And that was the prime thing. That's why the United Nations came into being.
Yes.
And right at the onset, this was basically what the UN Charter says.
Yeah.
And this is the mandate of the United Nations, not to prolong the conflicts, not to start the conflicts, and just at the right moment, grab it to have peace. So this is basically the prime mandate of the United Nations. So Saira, what about the bilateral engagements of the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif with the world leaders, as he has just met with the Maldivian president? Along with that, the President Erdogan of Turkey, and also have lots of other meetings. US-Pakistan Business Council is meeting Pakistani bankers to apprise them about the government's pro-business and investment policies, the keenness to expand the economic, commerce and trade horizon, also to bring investments into the country. So how do you see such meetings?
such meetings are very important when it comes to, you know, build a bilateral relationship with other countries around the globe, not only at regional level but at international level. So this is the time, and this particular event will provide and actually provides opportunity to all the countries to, you know, look for their own interest-based relation, to enhance their interest-based relations, particularly on economic terms, to develop their bilateral talks and their people-to-people contact. And I think I would seeing this in a very, you know, positive and developing way when Pakistan by itself is suffering from so many challenges, and in spite of that there is a little bit betterment in the economic terms as well, though a lot has to be done right now even. But I think these meetings will help a lot to the, particularly to the current regime, to have some leeway, to have some benefit out of, to have some bilateral talks, to import an enhancement
obviously,
of,
you are right.
you know,
Doctor, one last question, and that is related to how much important and critical PM's discussion with the European Commission, as he is going to meet President Ursula von der Leyen. Then, of course, International Monetary Fund, the Kristalina Georgieva, the World Bank President Ajay Banga as well, with likely focus on the economic matters crucial for Pakistan's financial and economic stability, so which is obviously right at the bumpy road of recovery. So how do you see, because now today IMF board is also meeting on Pakistan's case, so how much important these meetings are?
Indeed, they're pretty important. Regarding this European Commission, we have high hopes, because the Europeans, we think so, though they are the allies of the United States, but we think on certain issues they also become neutral. So I think so regarding the agenda on Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Prime Minister and his delegate may highlight to them that they should have a very active probe into what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Regarding IMF, that is on the top agenda, because Pakistan's economy is trying to come out of that problem which it was recently facing, and Pakistan has complied to the demands they were putting. And I think afterwards, you know, internationally there is a credit once they say okay, then other institutions, they were going to come out, like your World Bank, IMF and other.
Dr. Rizwan, your point well taken. Thank you very much for your presence in the studios. Thank you very much, Saira, for your presence, and thank you very much, Hamza, for being online, and very elaborative views from your side as well. Viewers, as you have just listened to our panelists, it is important that we have to just assert Pakistan globally. Unfortunately, from Ukraine to Gaza and from Lebanon to Sudan, there are lots of crises right now. China-US confrontation is there. Indo-Pacific situation is also volatile when it comes to, and India is actually exploiting whole of the situation. It has waged a long hybrid war against Pakistan on all fronts, but Pakistan has to pave the way out of that. We have to assert an aggressive foreign policy related to the resolution of the Kashmir issue, and also the Prime Minister is going to address the United Nations General Assembly, and in his address this peace, security and prosperity aspects, the resolution of the Kashmir and the Palestinian issues, along with the issue of that threat, which he rightly said that it is a death trap. So no doubt about that, because the international financial architecture must have to be restructured when it comes to the developing world. Pakistan has to take an assertive policies when it comes to the sustainable development goals, and world must have to help the developing countries, particularly the global south, because global south is suffering from lots of challenges, including the climate change, the poverty, destruction, and lots of conflicts, including terrorism, which Pakistan is also facing hard from the last many years, and that's why Pakistan is facing the economic brunt. And in this particular aspect, Prime Minister's meeting with the Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, and also the World Bank's President Ajay Banga are also going to be very important, in a sense that Pakistan is going to get the $7 billion package from the IMF, and the IMF board is going to take Pakistan's case as well. So these are very important meetings. The Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to United States to attend the the UNGA79 is very important in a sense that Pakistan is going to gather lots of diplomatic successes from this visit. So this is all from today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz.